You mentioned there that sort of strategic aim of Iran in supporting Hamas and trying to stop its enemies of Israel, the US and Saudi Arabia really uniting in any way. Is there any role, as the conflict continues, is there any role for any other third parties, the UN obviously, the US or Arab nations?
There's no role for the UN because the UN hasn't called this out for what it is. And I think as far as the Israeli government is concerned and in Western civilization, the UN has played itself pretty much out of the game altogether. I don't think on the Middle East question the UN has ever been much use, to be frank with you. No, I don't think it's going to be easy for anyone to mediate. I think what Hamas has done has made it clear that this isn't just about Israel and territory and retaliation and tit for tat and so on. This is about brutal anti-Semitism. So there's no scope for mediation there. I mean, the Israelis have just got to defend themselves. And the Jewish people, you know, to use a saying that the Jewish people often use, they have nowhere else to go. They have nowhere else to go. And they're just going to have to defend themselves, and we're going to have to support them in defending that. And, you know, having President Erdogan or, you know, the Qatari government or whoever it might be, you know, one sees these countries thrown around in the media, coming in and mediating something. It's not about mediation, it's about the Israelis, and more importantly than that, the Jewish people, and Israel is about 45% of the global Jewish population. It's about the Jewish people defending themselves. And they've had to through history, and they're just going to have to again from brutal and wicked anti-Semitism.
Yeah, it is just shocking.
There's just no alternative for them, and we've got to help them. We've got to help them as best we can.
I mentioned at the top of the show that we're dealing with this atrocity in the Middle East as we today are marking the 21st anniversary of the Bali bombings. Here's what Anthony Albanese had to say about that today.
That was an extraordinarily difficult time for all Australians. People lost their lives in that terrorist attack, and it had an ongoing impact. So today's a day as well to express our condolence to the family and friends of the victims of that bombing.
Alexander, I talked at the top of the program how I was working with you at that time and went to Bali and went to Jakarta when you managed to get agreement for that joint investigation and deal with the horrific circumstances unfolding. I just want you to talk about how that was so critical for this country. That was our 9/11 in many ways, but especially given what's happening in the Middle East now, does it remind us to be ever vigilant about Islamist extremist terrorism in our region and at home?
Well, and can I say that I've never forgotten the pain that is felt by the families of those people who are victims, and so repeat the views that I've expressed about that on many occasions. And of course, I met them you must have been with me actually, yep. I met them in Bali quite soon after the bombing. But out of evil and out of tragedy, sometimes good things emerge. And what emerged from that was, you remember well those meetings we had in Jakarta with the then coordinating Minister for Security, who was Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, who subsequently became the president. We built a wonderful relationship, a security relationship with the Indonesians, where we, working with them, I mean, they working with us might be a more honourable way of putting it, tracked down the people who committed this atrocity. And more than that, we built a relationship with the Indonesians, which culminated with the signing of the Lombok Treaty, where we produced in 2006, a really historic security treaty with the Indonesians. So really good things came out of that.
And indeed, we need to keep that cooperation going, especially when we see this trouble around the world. Thanks so much for joining us, Alexander Downer. I appreciate it.